If I have sinned, I tell him, oh Allah, forgive me. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Please forgive me, oh Allah. I don't have to go and sit in front of another person and do confession. No, God doesn't want you to disgrace yourself before another person. See how beautiful submission is? Share it with him, he hears you. Remember, he hears you. Just say you're sorry. Just say you made a mistake. Just say, intend not to come back to it. But remember, Islam teaches us that if the sin engages the right of another human being, you have to give the right back. I cannot steal you somebody's money and then comes, oh Allah, forgive me. No, you have to give the money back for Allah to forgive you. So, while we pray, if we're going through hard times, oh Allah, help me. Oh Allah, give me this. I don't have it. And if Allah blessed you with something good, you say, oh Allah, thank you. You praise God for what He given you. Alhamdulillah, it's called. Praise be to you for the health that I have, for the wealth that I have, for the knowledge that I have. Oh Allah, nothing that which I have but from you. You given everything to me. I admit this. You see that attitude? Beautiful, beautiful attitude. If you sinned, you ask for forgiveness. If you're going through hardship, you ask Him to help you. And if you're enjoying a bounty or a favor, you show gratefulness. Comes in the third pillar of Islam. Money, gold and silver is the engine which mobilizes a community. Allah given some of us and some of us do not have. And we're both tested. You see, this world is a testing place. Now God, Allah, demands of you, if you have, to share with those who do not have. A minimum again. By the way, there are people who pray more than 5 times a day. There are people who pray 50 times a day, 100 times a day. But you see, Islam offers a minimum. You cannot go below that minimum, period. You can't. Below the minimum, your Islam is in question. 5 times below it, your submission is in question. The same exact thing with almsgiving, with charity. 2.5% of your savings, after you take care of your basic needs, provided that you own the minimum of around $3,000 for a whole lunar year. It's too fast. Shall I say this again? You must give 2.5% of your savings after taking care of your basic needs. Housing, clothing, food, cars. You have a saving of $3,000 and more. For a whole lunar year, you must share, you must give 2.5% of this. $1,000, $25. Not too much. You can give more, but this is the minimum. And this is the right of the poor in your wealth. And you should do it yourself. When you give, it cleanses you from stinginess, being stingy. And when you give the poor, he will feel that you're caring for him. He will wish for you to be wealthier. He's not going to envy you for being rich because he sees you sharing. You see how the society is set? Comes in the fourth pillar, which is the pillar has to deal with fasting. Ramadan. Ramadan is one of the names of the lunar month in the lunar calendar. You see, we go by the moon in Islam. Could be 29 days, could be 30 days, based on the moon sighting. We observe fasting. What is fasting? Abstaining from eating, drinking, intercourse from dawn until sunset. Dawn until sunsets. Of course, also we must abstain from evil things, backbiting, gossiping, evil talk, stealing, and so forth. The beauty about fasting and the wisdom behind it is the concept of sincerity, that you do what you do for Allah. You see, you may be deceived about the motives behind you praying and giving alms to the poor. You could be showing off, you could be, but once it comes to fasting, is a very special act of worship between you and Allah. You find yourself, sometimes you're starving to death in the house by yourself. The refrigerator is out there. You could open and eat and go outside and still say that you're fasting. But you know Allah is watching you. Consciousness of God. Of course, the wisdom behind fasting is you having a handle on yourself. We believe that there are three enemies in your way to submission. The first and foremost enemy is actually you. Because the soul which you have wants pleasure now, not later. Satan, of course, and the bad friends. Fasting helps you to contain and tame your own self. You see, you find out that here you are depriving yourselves from basic needs, eating and drinking, which are lawful throughout the course of the year. So basically, if you can tell yourself no to lawful things, so when it comes to unlawfuls, like drinking alcohol, like smoking weed, marijuana, like adultery, then it's easy. You told yourself no to eating and drinking. It becomes easy to tell yourself no once it comes to things that are bad for yourself. So that is why this month becomes like a training course. You know, like you're in a job, and every year they send you for training for 1 year. So, because some of us, we drift away from the path of submission. It's very difficult. It's very demanding. But the rewards are tremendous. That is why the month of Ramadan comes. In it, Allah chains Satan, limits his impact on you, and then makes you do some work, starving, basically being hungry, being thirsty, which will help you put a domain over your own self. And of course, if you keep up with the acts of worship in the month of Ramadan, you will find the presence of bad friends in your lives is limited. So you have a chance to come back to Allah. That is why Ramadan is always a second chance for Muslims to return to Allah. The fifth and the last pillar, it's called Hajj. And it is mandatory. And by the way, I want to say that there are people who are exempt from fasting. So you don't live with the notion that you have to do it even if you're sick. Women who are pregnant, women who are breastfeeding, people who are diabetes, they are exempt. People who are terminally ill with cancer, they have excuses. And we have a way for them to expiate for this, to pay off for not fasting. But comes in the last pillar, which is going to Mecca. I want to take you to the book of Genesis to really learn the history of Mecca. If you read the story of Ibrahim or Abraham, in Islam we call him Ibrahim. He had Sarah, him and Lot. They had to go to Egypt to get some provision. They returned with a maid whose name is Hagar, that's the name. Sarah was a barren woman. She could not bear children. And she knew that Ibrahim, her husband, really wanted to have children. She told him to marry her maid. He married Hagar. Hagar conceived. She had a baby called Ishmael. Now, if you read the book of Genesis, it says that Sarah became jealous, but we read in our revelation that Allah commanded him to take Hagar and her baby to a place far away. You know where he took them? To Mecca, Saudi Arabia, where Muhammad was born. Ishmael is the grandfather. Ishmael is the grandfather of Muhammad. Muhammad traces back from his father's side to Ibrahim. Ishmael is the brother of Isaac. Come on, we're brethren, we're cousins. That is why we're here to help one another. Look at this now. Of course, in the book of Genesis, it tells you that Ibrahim took his family to a remote, faraway place and never tells you that he visited them. Come on, Ibrahim is a merciful father. For sure, he visited his family in Mecca. Islam tells us that he kept visiting them back and forth. And in one of these journeys, Allah commanded him to raise the foundation of his house in Mecca. This is what we call the Kaaba, that black thing which you see on television sometimes, or in pictures sometimes. And he called people to come and visit the house of Allah. We actually go and perform Hajj, pilgrimage, following the footsteps of Ibrahim. He introduced these rituals to us. But there is a great wisdom behind pilgrimage. Beside this, it's a reminder of the day of resurrection. And this takes me to the final 3 minutes of my presentation, which is the greatest reward that you get if you submit. The next life. We believe as Muslims that this world is a temporary place. This world is a testing place, not a resting place. If you're dreaming that tomorrow will be much better, no. I'm not being pessimistic, I'm being realistic. We're supposed to go through a chain of tests in this world. But you always succeed if you submit. Because if you submit, you will be given that tomorrow in the next life. You will be given a dwelling place of delight and pleasure. You're going to be given a different body. You're not going to feel angry anymore. You're not going to feel upset anymore. You're not going to envy anymore. You will join your family if they have submitted. You will be served by angels. You will eat not because you're hungry, because you desire to eat, and you don't have to worry about slim fast. You will drink not because you're thirsty, because you desire. Whatever you think of, you will find it. Whatever you want, you will find it. This is what we call heaven, the next life. Something about the next life, that you will never die. In this world, you will die. But the next life, you will never die. Something about the next world, whatever you have, you will maintain it. But in this world, whatever you have, you're always afraid that you're going to lose it. And no guarantees. But the next life, you will always have it. Come on. Compare between this world and the next life. The next life is far better. Paradise. You know, the greatest pleasure in paradise, that you get to see Allah. One of the greatest enjoyment that the dwellers of paradise get is when Allah unveils Himself to them and they get to look at His face. This is the greatest pleasure. My dear viewers, I hope my presentation has helped you to understand Islam better. Islam came for the happiness of humanity in this world and the success in the hereafter. Remember this, Islam is the most negatively spoken about religion. But you know what? It is the most growing religion in the world. Isn't that funny? People talk about it all the time in a bad way. Yet Christians and Jews, they say Islam is the most growing religion in the world. Join it. Submit. I love you. That is why I share this message with you. Peace.